And the fact that we say we won't support a film in cinema, but we will buy it on DVD, or we will go and watch it if it's on Netflix, or we'll stream it, it has zero logic in the real world, right? Zero.
I don't know if it's the same culture around the world, or in Australia, or in the USA, but in Brazil, we have a different culture regarding cinema.
Yeah. It was just like, how was your experience with it in the United States? Like, how was the reception for the movie or the whole process of making it? Because here in Brazil, as Matheus was saying, it's a bit more, it's like a conservative thought about cinema. So for us watching The Hopeful, it was just like watching the whole thing going to the cinema. It was just like, okay, how is that like?
I mean, Adventism culturally has got a really fascinating take on cinema, and it probably makes sense to start with, and deal with that, because it's actually an incorrect cultural phenomenon, because we've based this, like, you shouldn't go to cinema, off something that Ellen White wrote about the theatre.
Right.
And classically, when you don't look at that comment in context, so that comment was made to a specific person about a specific theatre, which, if you went to that theatre in that day and age, there was prostitution going on in there. So people were going there to make transactions, right? And so it makes total sense that she would say to this person, if you go there, people are going to assume that you're there for those transactions. So don't go there. Right. And so over the years, people have not looked at the context of that, and they've just said, oh, Ellen White said don't go to the theatre. But here's the even more interesting thing about that. Ellen White died in 1915. Cinema as we know it didn't exist till the 1920s. Yes. So it's even more of a crazy cultural phenomenon, because if you believe Ellen White had a comment about cinema going, then you're communicating with her post-death, which I don't know what that says about your beliefs of state of the dead, but I would say that they're probably far more out of skew than going to a movie is. Controversial, but the way I articulated it to anyone in the US that said, oh, so we're allowed to go to movies now, was basically, well, I don't understand. Are you abdicating your personal choice to a church organization? I don't understand what you're asking here. Like, are you asking the church whether or not you can fill with gas at the petrol pump? Like, it's a fascinating argument that I think needs to be just said for what it is, which is it's a cultural fallacy that we have created, and it has no bearing on the modern world. And the fact that we say we won't support a film in cinema, but we will buy it on DVD, or we will go and watch it if it's on Netflix, or we'll stream it, it has zero logic in the real world, right? Zero. And you can be politically correct and try and tone that down to satisfy, I don't work for any church organization, so I don't have to toe a party line on this. I simply have to say, if we don't get over this hang up, we are missing an opportunity to be part of a conversation in the communities in which we are, in a space where, if your film is on cinema screens, it is regarded as more valuable than pretty much any other space, right? Like, if you released on YouTube, it is not viewed in the cultural discourse as valuable as if it was released in cinema. So we're simply missing the opportunity to have stories that mean something to us get given the value that they could have, And so the experience in the US, you did get some of that pushback from some quarters. There were some areas where people really struggled with that, but the people who supported it, by and large, had fantastic experiences with it. Conversations with people in lobbies that they'd never met that weren't Adventist, and ended up going out and eating afterwards with groups of people, like, to me, that's the power of cinema, right? It drives a certain conversation and discourse that's not possible anywhere else. We don't have a conversation anymore around television because it's not time-based. everything's on demand. So the thing that I'm watching isn't the thing you're watching. So we can't necessarily get together afterwards around the water cooler, right, the next day at work and talk about the TV experience and the themes and the issues and the characters and the journeys that prompted us and who did you relate to and who do I relate to. Cinema still affords that conversation, you know, because you have to arrive there and you end up in a room full of people, and the experience of a story with others is very, very unique to cinema. And so I think, yeah, its value as a conversation in the broader community's sphere is not immeasurable. It's actually measurable, you know. So for people that actually supported it and went, they saw both an engagement with the community and a new understanding of, if you didn't know who Adventists were and that film played in your local cinema, now that community had a greater understanding of who Adventists are.
Yes.
Like, none of this stuff is rocket science. It's actually about as old school Adventist as you can get, right? Because the cinema is the modern day big tent.
Okay? Yeah.
Yes.
And how do you feel like this
dare I say, with popcorn?
Yeah.
With better snacks, probably.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah.